You know what I consider to be one of the best things in the world to do? Get on a plane and go somewhere. I don't know about you, but there's no other exhilaration than sitting there, especially if you're going on holiday to a sunny destination. The throttles go up, the plane gets faster and faster and faster, and then you have that feeling of lift and away you go. I absolutely love it. I have done since I was a teenager, and any excuse, I'm up there. Do you know, actually, statistically, it's still in the main the safest way to travel, even safer than what I do for a living. But that footage you just saw was the last seconds of Air India flight 171, and as you'd have seen in the news, and it's come back a little bit now, that was the crash back in June, shortly after takeoff. It was only airborne for about 40 seconds and some 260 people died. Miraculously, of course, there was one survivor who somehow, beyond all miracles, walked away. I still can't understand how myself, because it hit the ground and burst into a fireball, and how you could get away from that. Unbelievable story. Well, whenever something like this happens, there's some very important questions, and I guess two of the most important. How did it happen? Why did it happen? You know, even with all of the thousands and thousands of safe flying hours, something is bound to go wrong every now and again, and we get tragedies like this. But the important thing is you learn what went wrong, how it went wrong, and do everything in your power to make sure it never goes wrong again. Now, when the Air Accident Investigation Board gets involved, or the investigation people, whatever country it happens to be in, there's several things that come into play. There's witnesses, camera footage from the airfield, camera footage that people may have taken from their houses, time of day, weather, fuel, operations at the airport, and what exactly happened on the plane to cause the crash. Now, that's what we need to centre on particularly. There's some information that's been released in a preliminary report, which is a little bit troubling. You see, whenever you're on a plane of that size, there's a hell of a lot of information that's recorded, and they're recorded by devices called black boxes. Now, despite what the name implies, they're actually not black at all. They're more of a orangey red colour. You can see a picture here, and the whole design is to make sure that they survive an airplane disaster, so the information on them can be retrieved, pieced together, and work out exactly what went wrong. Now, generally speaking, there's usually a black box which will record everything that's said in the cockpit, and there's a black box which records enough information from the instruments on the aircraft to again try and point out what went wrong with regard to altitude, speed, what buttons were pushed, what switches were flipped, so on and so on. You get the picture. Well, there's been several theories about what happened here. One of the most early popular ones was the fact that the flaps were incorrectly set on takeoff. The aircraft didn't get enough lift and therefore crashed. That theory was quickly dispelled by many people, pilots who know far more than me. At the end of the day, I'm just an enthusiast. So what did happen? Well, the black box information, you know, they've started to retrieve it and get through bits and pieces. And one of the initial findings is around what they call the fuel cutoff switches. Now, what are they, and where are they, and what do they do? As the name implies, a fuel cutoff switch does just that. It cuts off fuel to the engines. And there's one per engine. In the case of this aircraft, there were two of them. And those switches must never ever be used in flight, unless there's some out of the ordinary situation, which means they have to be. Now that situation would be something like an engine fire, where you would need to isolate the fuel from that engine. Now I'll put this diagram up on the screen here now so you can see it. And this is in the centre of the cockpit. It's in between the pilot and the co-pilot. And starting from the left hand side, that lever there that you can see controls the landing gear, up or down. The two levers in the middle are the thrust levers for the engines, which again, as the name implies, denotes how much thrust you want those engines to deliver for you. Pushing it forward, more thrust; pulling it back, less. The lever on the left with the numbers on, that is the flap control. Flaps, flapperons, they're named different things depending on what aircraft you're referring to, but it's all the same principle. You pull that lever down towards you to the different angles, and depending on how much, depends on how much more lift is generated. Right below the thrust levers, you'll see two switches there, fuel cutoff switches. And they've got two positions, on or cut off, as the name implies. If they're cut off, then no fuel is getting to the engines. They're starved. Now, park this here for a second. There's one thing to note. There is no way, by design, at all, that those switches can be operated by accident. Since the 1950s, on most aircraft where these switches are involved, they have to physically be pulled up and pulled into position, then let go again. They're spring loaded. Because they're such a critical switch, they're designed that way to prevent any accidents happening. So they would physically have to be moved by hand. The black box information that's come through shows that pretty soon after takeoff, those switches were abruptly moved to the cut-off position. According to the news, you can see here, one of the flight crew turned around and said to the other, "Why did you use the cut-off switches?" And the reply was, "I didn't." That's according to the news. At this stage, early stage, we don't know who said what to who. That's too early to tell. As soon as the error was identified, the switches were then moved, from the information I've got. But by that stage, they were too low, not enough lift, not enough thrust being generated at all, and you saw the result. Smashed into the ground, killing 260. From what I read, one engine started to recover when they corrected the position of the switches. The other one didn't. It was just starting to come back to life. In these engines, they're big metal propellers that spin round, but you need that RPM to get them going in the first place, and obviously not enough altitude, not enough time. So there you go. The switches themselves, by their design, and the fact you have to manually lift them up, pull them into position, and then let go so they spring back in, raises many questions. And I'm sure as the information becomes more freely available, we'll know a lot more. And the important thing, one of the most important things, is why? And how do we prevent it from happening in the future? One of the most important things to realise as well is that airline travel, statistically, is still one of the safest ways to get about. And as I said at the beginning of the video, I absolutely love it. A little bit of a different story for you, get away from politics, and let me know what you think. Anyway, thanks for listening. Please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Here's another one of my videos here, and as always, I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.